the day all my dreams come true. Feel the Spirit working its way through. Yes, this is the day. It's time to fly higher and higher up in the sky. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Woo!
Good morning. I'm missing my little fuzzy ball that goes on here. I feel like I'm naked. Hey, watch it. Anyways, Bob or somebody, the fuzzy ball's gone from this thing. Just want to let you know. Yeah, no. Oh yeah. Oh, I feel so much better now. Thank you. Thank you. Whew. I felt uncomfortable for a while there. All right, so welcome to West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Reverend Clyde Goins. I'm the assistant minister here, and I am happy that you guys are all here with us and enjoying this beautiful Sunday morning. We've been getting a lot of rain, and I hope everybody's safe, but it's been wonderful and filling up our lakes, filling up our homes, and watering our plants, which they all need. So we come together every Sunday to remember our truth that we're whole, perfect, and complete, just the way we are. And so we come together to support one another and know that life is good. So I want to invite Nancy up here. She has a quick announcement for us. Oh, yeah. Right.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to talk again about projects of love. We're moving on to our next project, which is Treasures for Teachers. And those of you who are not familiar with that, Treasures for Teachers is an organization that provides items for teachers to use in their classroom at a very, very nominal fee. And what we do, and a lot of other places do, is we collect items, and they come and they pick them up. And we need 20 boxes worth of things to collect, to give them before they'll come and pick them up. We haven't set a date yet, but it'll probably be around the first week in October. So I would like you all to start collecting things for Treasures for Teachers and help the teachers out, because you know they have to supply so many of their own items in the school district. There is a list in the newsletter of the items they will accept and would like to have, and then there's also a list there of the things that they really don't want to be bothered with, so like broken things. But I also made about 10 copies of this. I'd prefer you go and look at the one on the newsletters, but if you need a copy of this, they're on the little coffee table in the lounge area in the bookstore. And if you have any questions, I'll be here after the service, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. Thank you. All right. You have your fuzzy thing. What's the fuzzy thing do?
It's between me and the fuzzy thing. All right, so Nancy did really well because we've had to practice on her time spent on the mic. Anyway, so yes, I want to thank Nancy for leading our one of our community outreaches. It's really, really important. And I love our teachers, Treasures for Teachers program that we do. I don't think that we give our teachers enough credit for all that they do for our children. So anything that you can do to help support that would be wonderful. All right, so let's say our vision statement together. We are a loving, joy-filled community, honoring the many paths to God as we learn and live the Science of Mind principles. And so it is. So if you just sit back, relax, open up your hearts and minds for the Bradford's beautiful music and Reverend Karen's beautiful message. Thank you.
So just take a deep breath.
will make a quiet place within my heart, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my mind, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my life, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place.
And in this quiet place, there's but one essence, one God. That is love, joy, beauty, peace. The essence of all there is, all there ever has been, and all there ever will be. And each of us is an individualization of this essence as God moves through us, as us, and shows up as peace, love, joy, beauty, all that God is. And as I know that is true for myself, I know that is true for everyone here. In this building, watching us, the whole planet. We are all God sparks. And I say a word of blessings for the Bradfords and their wonderful music that always feeds our souls and brings us closer together as we become part of. And I say a word of blessing for Reverend Karen and her wonderful message that I know is going to inspire us as she teaches us new ways of looking at things that we can take with us as we leave and show forth to others. And I am so grateful this service is absolutely perfect the way it is. And I just release it into the law knowing it's already done. And so it is. Okay, guys, I'm going to do something different. Don't we know that? Okay, so I don't quite know how to say this. Anyway, I have this book. It's called A New Thought, Journey Through the 12 Steps. And it is written by a CSL member out of High Mile Church. And I was talked into buying it, so I got it. So I started reading it, of course. And I'm going to read an excerpt from this today because I think it might fit in with what Reverend Karen is saying, although I don't really know. Chapter 3. We can twist it. Became willing to expand my concept of spirit so that I feel connected to it and safe with it. What makes us feel safe? What makes you feel safe? What makes you know without a doubt that all is well, no matter what the conditions may be? For me, it is love. God is love. Love is God. Love, love, love. Love for my fellow humans to me. Love for me to them. It is also nature. I spend a lot of time outdoors. I can't look at the sky or witness a sunset or feel the energy of the little hill I climb each day without also thinking of God and His oneness, knowing that I am one with the most powerful entity in the known universe, alleviates all loneliness and worthlessness and lack. It is that thing, that force, that isness, that allows me to move within and know that no matter how dangerous the neighborhood is inside my head, I am safe. Get a concept of God that works for you, and then move on, remembering that concept is like a work of art, constantly changing. Think about that one for a minute. And so it is.
It's beautiful.
You got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, latch on to the affirmative, don't mess with Mr. In Between. You've got to spread joy up to the maximum, bring gloom down to the minimum, have faith or pandemonium's liable to walk upon the scene. To illustrate my last remark, Jonah in the well, Noah in the ark. What did they do just when everything looked so dark? Man, they said we better accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, latch on to the affirmative. Don't mess with Mr. In Between. Don't mess with Mr. In Between. Don't mess with Mr. In Between. No, don't mess with Mr. In Between.
Oh, that was fun. Beautiful rendition of a appropriate song for what needs to be said today. So good morning. Oh my goodness, it's wonderful to be here and to see you all here and to I'm just going to warn you, I'm a little fired up because I'm very excited about what I have to say today, and I had a really good time writing the message, and I think there's something useful for everybody here to take home. And of course, I think that every Sunday, or I wouldn't spend my time doing this. But today I'm really revved up, so thanks for being here. I am Reverend Karen Rice, and I was away last week, and so I have twice as much to say today. So, but I'm going to talk really fast, okay? So I don't go too long. You know, I'll be good. I'll be as good as I can, which sometimes when I'm really excited, I can't help it. Sometimes for me, longer is better, but I know it's not good for we used to have a teacher, a homiletics teacher, who teaches you how to do this, how to speak from the pulpit. And she used to say, when the bum goes numb, the ears go deaf. I actually think it probably rhymed, but I don't remember it anymore. Title of my talk this morning is Evolution is Not a Naughty Word. I know, imagine that. From the pulpit, we're going to talk about evolution in a church. It just excites me. The very rebelliousness of it is a huge turn on for me. So the topic of evolution is of great interest to me. As you know, for several years it began. It sparked in about 2012, 2013 when we began to really see the decline in church attendance. So what's happening in the world? And then I started studying all about the millennials, and then 2 or 3 years later, we figured out, it's not their fault. That as much as the millennials don't want to go to school or go to church anymore, there's also a group of people like my age, some of our ages that are retired and Sun City ages, that they're calling them the nuns because they don't want to go to church either. So what are we going to do? And then the pandemic hit. Now all of a sudden we probably have more people paying attention, listening, following our Sunday service than was ever even imaginable when we were still thinking how many people were sitting in the sanctuary mattered. Now, something very inconvenient has brought us all to the same level, and of course we are extremely dependent on individuals. More, it's not just good music anymore. You guys now have competition. We also need good production. So we're doing that, and I wanted to talk about this idea of evolution. In New Thought, we define it as a process. Evolution is a process, and that's what I want to bring home today. In the book, The Essential Earnest, which is the book I've been using all year to inspire me on Sundays, it's a book of a lot of writings from Ernest Holmes, the founder of this teaching, and it was compiled by Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings. If you don't know, he writes a regular column in the Science of Mind magazine that is the very first thing I always look at when I get my new magazine. I want to see what kind of questions somebody asked him and how did he come about and answer those questions. You know what would be fun is if we had some of the ministers here do the same thing, like before we let them read the answer, like, how would you answer this question? And we could get a variety of opinions. That would be great. But Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings said that science explains life. You know, science uses evolution to explain how life got to be the way it is. And religion blames it all on God. Religion has like, poof, creation, rib and dust and all of that stuff. But Ernest, and I dare say that Dr. Jennings actually calls him Ernest, he says, but Ernest resolves this debate. This is the way Ernest speaks of evolution. He says this: involved thought evolves form. Involved, that inner way we think our thoughts and we create images in our mind, and then we feel that in an inward way inside of us, and that's the push for the way change happens in our life. Everything starts with a thought. So the thought of God, God had a desire for us, and here we are, humanity, and that we replicate that same process. So the bottom line from the words of Ernest Holmes is that there's some intelligence in the universe that is always projecting evolution, is always creating. That evolution is then about growth, and it's about expansion. The thing that Holmes does that makes it really unique is that he adds this line, that as we become more aware of this intelligence in the universe, and we begin to align ourselves to those principles or that consciousness, that level of thinking that is divine, then we are able to more fully evolve in our own way. In our own living. So this is a repeated theme that you'll see in our teaching, that there's a very exacting law of correspondence that is always reflecting back to us exactly as we believe, and it's what we think, that it's the way that we interpret the words of Jesus, it is done unto us as we believe. In Holmes' very own words, here's a quote. I think I pulled it from Essential Earnest, which means it comes from somewhere else first. But Holmes says, we do not deny the theory of evolution, but we understand it as the way we think things into being. And life is in a constant state of becoming. I say that all the time. You hear me say that up here a lot, that we are in a constant state of becoming. The universe is perpetually becoming. There's no end date. It'll never be finished. So we're talking about, an eternal unfoldment. It's the way that life continues after this body may not continue. And then he, of course, reminds us that life is always revealing to us at the exact level that we are receptive to it. So I'm looking at the way I can apply that to my understanding of humanity. that we're always, as a human condition, there are different eras. I mean, we talk about the hunters and gatherers, and then we went into agriculture, and you can see that the consciousness of humanity changes with each and every era. So we're always growing. It's not a goal to get finished. Though for some people religiously it is, it's like heaven is the great reward. But our real wisdom, the real personal spiritual growth, comes with our awareness of this idea of evolution as a process. And maybe you'll never use that word in your own life, evolution, but think of it as just that continuity, that continual way life insists on growing and changing. So we can recognize that in our personal accountability to being a responsible human on the planet. We can measure that by, are we growing? Am I spiritually more mature today than I was a year ago? Am I emotionally, your IQ is not, maybe how they might measure intelligence through IQ. But what is my emotional intelligence? Is it higher than it was a year ago? Is it it should be a lot higher than it was when I was in high school, because living brings us more information, and that's how we grow. Growth equals expansion, and that's the nature of life itself. Now, if we look at nature and we, pay attention to the way things are expansive I think that I just looking at the weeds on the property from, it's like, wow, are they happy with this monsoon weather? And also looking at the damage from the storm we had last week. Anybody else without power? My neighborhood was out. Anybody else? Am I the only one that lives in that quadrant of that perimeter? I had no power for almost 24 hours. I stayed in a hotel day before yesterday. Just got off the airplane home from my trip, and I'm back in a hotel. I wasn't thrilled, but on the other hand, I was happy that I had that option, that I could have that privilege of being able to be safe and cool, because it was quite hot without AC. So in nature, we see that there are things that happen in cycles, that there is a cyclic nature to life itself, and that as we observe that, we see that there are patterns and that there are seasons. So there are times of the year, as we observe nature, where there's almost like a contraction, the way growth slows down and things go dormant for a while, right? Even here in the desert, we witness dormancy in interesting ways. So there are rest periods. And then when the weather changes or the condition changes, or it's the season for blooming of a certain cactus, then all of a sudden you see this abundance of life that follows that rest. And so I think today I want us to look at that, the patterns and the natural cycles, and to see how we relate to them, to those patterns. Now, pretty much everybody will relate to this, even if you've only seen it in a photograph. But if you take a slice of a chunk of a tree, like a stump of a tree, or you're walking and a tree has been cut down and the trunk remains, the stump is there, and you can see that smooth slice. You can see the rings, right? And what do they say about those rings? It tells you, you can count the rings, and it will give you a fairly accurate aging of that tree. But you know what I didn't know before I did all this fun research? What I didn't know was the people that study such things are not just looking to see how old the tree was. They can also read those rings and tell you what the weather was like all the way back to as old as the tree is. It reflects flooding, it reflects droughts, it reflects damage, natural disasters and all of those things. Isn't that funny? We call them natural disasters. Do you know what they call those experts that know all that stuff? They're called dendrochronologists. A slice of a trunk of a tree, and they can tell you all kinds of history about what the life of that tree was like. And so I thought about that, and I thought, I used to be, my dad called me a turtle rancher. Because when my children were real little, when I had 4 babies, we adopted 4 hatchling tortoises. I lived in Southern California, and they're highly, protected. So you have to adopt them through proper means, and we did that. And you're only supposed to get 2, but they only had 4 left, and I had 4 kids. They went, oh, take all 4 of them. And so we did. And then 20 years later, they're mating and reproducing, and you can't just let them do that. You have to go out in the yard. You have to watch her lay the egg. You watch her. It takes her a day to dig the hole. Then you go out, and then she covers it up, and you have to let her cover it up. And then she walks away. And then I would go out there with a long iced tea spoon and an empty egg carton, which was always a conflict for me. It's like, and I would dig, and you have to be very careful, and you get the eggs, and then you put them in an aquarium at a certain temperature, and then you wait, I forget how many days, and then they start hatching. It's thrilling. But then you have to keep in the house for at least a year, and you have to feed them and watch them, and they tip over because they climb on each other. And I don't even know, I don't know how many tortoises we raised to be mature enough to adopt out, and our little tortoises are all over the place. I used to have to put a board up by the sliding glass door so that when it was open, the tortoises would not come in the house, because they love to come in the house. And they hibernated. They would hibernate, even though it was Southern California and it wasn't that cold. They would hibernate for the whole winter. And in the spring, they'd wake up and they'd like slow motion, walking around. And then all of a sudden, they're fully awake and they eat like crazy. They're ravenous because they haven't eaten in months, right? So the tortoise is just like that. The tortoise has markings in the shell that are just like the rings on the tree. You can count them. So they have, I think they're called scoots. I didn't look it up, so I don't know for sure. But they have these different little sections in the pattern. There's a really pretty artistic pattern in the shell, and they're all unique and different, like fingerprints. But they also have ridges and grooves, and you can count them. And they're not exact. It's not quite as precise as counting the rings in a tree, which are a little easier to count. But because I knew the age of all my tortoises, I can tell you it was pretty accurate, and it was a fun thing to observe. So here's the deal. When the tortoise hibernates, remember there are mammals that hibernate as well. You don't want to come across a hungry bear that just woke up. When the tortoise is hibernating, their growth slows down, and that's while they're resting, a groove grows in the shell. But when they wake up and they start eating, on the other side of that groove, a ridge begins to grow. And the more they eat, the more, because our tortoises ate the clover in the yard. I fed them proper food, but they ate, and dandelions. We never pulled weeds because the tortoises loved them. And there were certain things we couldn't plant, like I could never grow a hibiscus because they would just, I had to grow them in pots or the tortoises loved it. So when they eat, those ridges grow up and they get wide, and then you can count between the ridge and the groove. Every year, another year is marked. It's helpful for us to come to realize that there are seasons in our lives, that we too are growing rings, or we are growing ridges and grooves, and that there are mountains and valleys in the same way that the earth was, all that happened way before people happened. And what we see is information like that is very distinct, marked information that tells a greater story. So in life we have geologists and archaeologists and paleontologists and all these experts that study the earth, and they study fossils and they study artifacts, and they can tell us things that happened millions of years ago based on the information they get. So they excavate, and then they examine, and then they evaluate, and they have a story begins to form. They begin to see a fuller picture than just the immediacy of the fun. Wouldn't it be fun to do that? I think that would be crazy fun to go out on an expedition, and I would love to do that. So you know my favorite Jesuit priest. Yes, he and I are. We are becoming more intimate as the days go on, and I have too much time to read. Teilhard de Chardin was a Jesuit priest who studied fossils and artifacts and the earth, and he loved all of that. He lived in the same time period as Dr. Ernest Holmes, born in the late 1800s, passed somewhere in the I actually don't remember, but Holmes passed in the 1960s, and I know Teilhard's lifetime was right in that same window. And Teilhard was deeply touched and impacted by all of the things that he studied. He loved studying the earth because he saw patterns. He recognized that there was something familiar about different patterns. And he began to understand that the diversity in life, the complexity of life, that there was something beautiful about all of that in nature. And he named it the beauty of change. Isn't that lovely? And he even said that this recognition, being able to see these patterns, drew him to the very heart of God. Oh, I just love that. Now, he was a priest, remember, Teilhard de Chardin, a priest, a Jesuit priest, and a scientist, wrote about evolution. He saw it as this big process of evolution that is ongoing in the entire universe. He understood it in the same way that we could stand here and talk about it today. It's not a naughty word. It's just the process of life growing, expanding, the acquisition of wisdom, and it applies to each and every one of us, and it applies to all of us as a whole, and it's important, and the church was not happy with him, and they banned him. They prohibited him from publishing in his works. Like many great contributors, his works were not published till after he passed. Who's willing to publish my stuff after I pass? Oh, thank you. Okay, taken. It's you. Whoa, I didn't know how I was going to my kids want nothing to do with that. Thank you very much, Karen. I'm saying it's a good fit. Here's what Teilhard said. Remember, it drew him to the heart of God. Here's what he said. There is indeed, he was completely convinced, there is indeed, it makes me cry a little bit, an inexhaustible potential for existence and for transformation. There is indeed. There is no question from someone who dedicated his life to spirituality and science as well. Inexhaustible potential, we use that word in this community, for existence and for transformation. And he recognized that those patterns were absolutely everywhere. And I thought, as I read those words, I thought this: what if we could just take a thin slice of these times that we're living in right now, and we could look at it, and we could try, as Teilhard did, to see the beauty in the diversity, to see the beauty in the complexity, to see that there is beauty in the polarization even, that there is something magnificent that is absolutely whole, that is trying to emerge, that is trying to get our attention. And if we do not go deep within and align ourselves to the spiritual principle, we will only see the mess. Well, that is not how I planned to say that. Could we rewind that? I want to see that. No, I can't. In fact, if I try, it'll be less, but it is recorded. You'll be able to hear it. But it's like, what if we could take a slice of the time we're living in now, and like Teilhard de Chardin, see that there's beauty here. The contrasts in nature that don't seem like they should fit together. He saw beauty in the diversity and the complexity. He's not talking people, he's talking everything in the universe. All those patterns. Think of the rings on the tree, right? Think of the design on the back of the tortoise shell, and then think of your own life. That if we could take a slice of our lives, that it would tell a story. I love that he said that, inexhaustible potential for existence and transformation, because what he's saying to us is that there is this process of ongoing transformation. It's not wrong. It's not bad. We cannot survive without it. The human body has to shed skin and sadly hair and all of that, and then we go on. And so we have our personal work to do. And the way that we put our story together to make sense in our own life, this is about, at some point, at some age, can we let go of some of that baggage we carry with us about what has happened to us? And I know that there are moments in our lives that were life-changing, that the whole trajectory of our future shifted when we woke up and got wise. Right? So I'm not saying let that go. I'm saying you stand in that and you use that as your anchor. But you don't have to keep being mad at whoever done it to you. And you shouldn't be mad at yourself for the mistakes that you've made. Shake it off and move on and hang on to those precious moments that you know you would not be where you are today had that not happened to you. Ongoing transformation. One by one, we change our story. Now we can see that we're impacting the whole story of humanity, and the slice of history that we're living in can be altered. It doesn't have to be in the worst scenario, which is what you see when you watch TV and follow the wrong things on the internet and all that stuff. I know I get sucked into that too, So life is always, revealing a story to us, but it's always ongoing. It's always in this process. Now, here's one more thing I wanted to bring up. Let's really pay attention to the cyclic nature of life, to the seasons, the way things are always changing. That life itself, including our lives, have periods of dormancy, followed by periods of activity. So we work on a relationship, and things are great, and then all of a sudden things are not so great, and we don't even know why. We're working on a project that's really important to us, and suddenly we hit a wall, and we've lost all our oomph, and we don't know how to get on the other side of it. Those are just the times to slow down, to rest, to let it be dormant for a while, because we need the grooves and we need the ridges, because they are all part of the natural pattern, the natural design. Life is a process that is cyclic. There is contraction and there is expansion. There's hibernation, and then there's waking up. There's dormant times, and there are wakeful times. Even birth. I'm an old midwife. Woo! Birth is a process, and the uterus, when it magically knows when it's time, starts contracting, and the contraction, all the muscles, all of that work is working to push downward for life to be delivered in the flesh on the planet that causes then that great expansion. And it's messy. Right? But, I always say this. I always said this when I was a childbirth educator. I would say, first-time moms, sometimes second or third time, but women who were frightened of that process, and it's a lot to think about. You men have no idea. And you don't want to know, right? But the thing is, it's not like it's just 3 days of agony. It's like there's contractions. You have pain, and then you have rest. You have pain, and then you have rest. it comes to pass, and that's the nature of life. So yes, birth is messy, but I wanted to say this. Birth is messy on purpose. You know, I mean, it's just a part of what happens, and we all been through it because we were here and we were born. So all of this tells me, wow, it's so helpful to be able to look at the bigger story, to be like the archaeologist or the geologist and study the bigger things, like, you know, wonder how the hell did the Grand Canyon happen? And glad I wasn't here then. It's just more than dark and night. It's so much more than birth and death. It's more than good and bad. It's all of those things combined. So yes, it's diverse and it's complex and sometimes it's ugly. And there is apparently a way, as we stand in spiritual truth, to also allow God to reveal the beauty in it as we accept the wholeness, the allness of it. So it's like, for me, it feels like after I was writing all this, I thought, it's like a rhythm in the pattern, right? Periods of rest, periods of movement. All of it leads to growth and expansion, including our own understanding about this process of life and that we're living individually. Including the wisdom that we gain, including the spiritual depth we desire to acquire or touch. You know, you don't acquire it, but you touch it. Because here's the reality. You know this is true. Before you were wise, you're pretty foolish. Right? We're children. When you're a babe, you act and think as a babe, right? Do you know that I had an English professor who said, in Latin, sophomore, he used to pronounce it with an O in the middle, sophomore, there's a reason they call them sophomores. Because in Latin, it stands for foolish one. 15-year-old, think of it. Think of it. So all of us were foolish before we were wise, and some of the best decisions we've ever made were because of something foolish we did in the past. You can't have one without the other. Before we were compassionate, it's likely we experienced cruelty. Right? It carves us out, it grows us. There's a natural order that we can trust. Okay, I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to give you a quote from Anais Nin. Anais Nin, some of you know who that is. Anais Nin is not typically quoted on a Sunday morning from a pulpit. But she is a French-born American author who people miss the depth of her substance. I started noticing her name in spiritual material that I read, and I began to realize that this woman is a deep thinker. I probably would not identify herself as spiritual. However, she was very philosophical and had a lot of really wise things to say about life. Listen to this quote. We do not grow absolutely. We do not grow chronologically. We grow sometimes in one dimension and then not in another. We grow unevenly. We are relative. We are mature in one realm and then we're childish in another. The past and the present and the future all mingle, and they pull us backward and then forward, or they fix us in the present moment. We are layers. We are cells. We are constellations. That's exquisite. Yeah? Uh-huh. That is, I wished I wrote that. I'd like to have my name behind that. Exquisitely put, all part of the whole. Holmes defined evolution as time and process. So we're looking at the way we build up ridges when we're active, and we create grooves when we rest. But I would say we also build up walls when we're scared. And sometimes it's because we have built up walls that we can have a breakthrough. So Holmes says that evolution is described as time and process. Now, you know what that tells me? That happens in physical form. That happens in our humanity. This is not about being a better spiritual person. This is just a part of who we are. And he says that the purpose of all of our humanity is for spirit to be able to show up. What a great thinker. So it's not about bigger and better, but it's more about consecutive phases of growth and rest. That really is the theme I'm looking at today. It's looking at the seasons. You know, Ecclesiastes 3:1. Anyone? Ecclesiastes 3:1. For everything there is a season. Yeah. Oh, we could have had that song. You could have done that, I'll bet. That didn't even cross my mind. Yeah, for everything there is a season, and it's very distinct in a lengthy paragraph or a few paragraphs of showing us the dualism, the dualities of life, the polarization of life, and that how it is all part of one great big whole. We've all been through seasons. We've all been through seasons. It's just life. Last Saturday was my husband's birthday, and we took him to his favorite place on the planet. We took him to the Central Coast of California in Cambria, California, and he got to ride up on his Harley in the saddlebags. In the same saddlebags that he put his father in when we took his father to the very same place 15 years ago. My son rode Hugh's Harley with him in the saddlebags. And we took a portion of him on his birthday, and we went out to the very same bluff that in fact, I rented a house that was close to what we called the ranch. It has great hiking paths, and there's a bluff with a big, beautiful bench there that's all natural driftwood. And my grandson, as a surprise to me, learned to play on the guitar Landslide. And he sat on that bench and he played that beautiful piece of music. And may I just say, he played it way better than Hugh ever could have. We got some musicians in our family, and he played it, and it was so beautiful. And I was so taken, and everybody was crying because it was so lovely. And while he played, I scattered Hugh's ashes all around that area and carved our initials in the dirt and loved him and just knew how happy he was. And then one of my granddaughters read Hugh's poem, The Wind and I. And what do you think happened? Huge gust of wind. And I was able to toss him out, and we watched him blow in the wind. And he had this great love affair. If you read that poem, it's I always thought it was about me because it's kind of sensual, but no, it wasn't about me. It was it's about how much he loved the wind. And so we did that. We gave him that. And then there was one more thing we had to do. I wanted to do. Nobody thought we'd pull this off. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we are. We got on the bikes, and we rode about a half a mile north to the turnout where he loved to sit and watch the surfers, because my husband is an old surfer. He loved the ocean, and he surfed. Even while we were married, he surfed. And as we pulled into that turnout, there was a surfer named Elliot who had just climbed up the bluff. He's in his wetsuit. He's all wet. He's got a surfboard under his arm. I don't know how they surf on those little tiny things. It used to make Hugh crazy. And I approached him. My son's going, Mom, wait, you want a surfer going down, not a guy that's done surfing, And I said, no, I got this. So I approached him. I went up to him and I said, you know, my husband passed and we have some of his ashes, and he's an old surfer, an old biker and an old surfer, and he used to come to this point and watch you guys, and I have a little bit of him. I would love to have a surfer takeout. Can you help me find someone? And he said, I'll do it. And so he took the Ziploc. I'll never look at Ziplocs the same. And he shoved it in his wetsuit. And then he ran down that bluff with his surfboard and he hit the water. And by the way, by now the wind had blown out the waves. It's very choppy. And he went all the way out. He just kept going and he kept going. He's taken Hugh, and my whole family has gathered around, and some people are filming it. You know, it's on Facebook if you want to see it. No takers? None? And he takes him out, and then you see he stops and he straddles the board. He's paddled all the way out. He straddles the board. He reaches in his wetsuit, opens the bag, and he tosses him in the air, and we watched him scatter across the sea. Elliot came back, and my children were profusely thanking him. And he said, no, I thank you. He said, nobody has ever asked me to do something so meaningful before. Thank you. And we all cried together. I'm a little more carved out than I used to be. Right? We all are when we go through these experiences. My heart, if you took a slice of my heart, you'd see there's a new ring there now. Right? You can see the story of my life, and you can see the story of your life in your little slices. And there's a new ring in the heart of Elliot, the surfer, whom we will probably never, ever encounter again. It was just a one-chance meeting, and with a really beautiful ending. So Dr. Holmes said that there is a latent divinity within us. There is a latent divinity. It's in there. Something about us. It's God. There's a godness about us. It is insistent. And then he uses these words. I love this. It impels and it compels our growth. It impels. It means it initiates. There's something in us. Holmes said that was love. That love was the impulsion, and that then there's something compelling that insists that life come into form, and we are participating in that process. Something about life. Here's your takeaway today. Something about life is always pushing us toward our good, toward joy, toward beauty, toward perfect order. There's something in us that insists on it. So when we're unhappy, it's because we have not harmonized, we have not aligned ourselves to it. So my question to you, your takeaway is, will you resist that force? Or will you align yourself to it and allow the natural spiritual force in your being to assist you in the remaining part of your becoming in at least this form right now? The choice is ours. The season is now. Thomas Troward, a great portion of our material in our teaching comes from the beautiful work that Judge Troward did. He said this: the basis of our further evolution is conformity to the harmonious nature of the originating spirit. The basis of our evolution depends on how much we are willing to align to the harmony that is inherently in the universe, everywhere around us, in spite of the contrast, in spite of the conflicts we go through, in spite of those things that look out of order. And the urge is always for us to be restored to that order. Magnificent advice. So when we understand these things, this message this morning, when we look at the fuller picture, we can begin to see that this is how we grow. It is through our ups and our downs. It is through our pain and our joy. It is through love and then the heartbreak that goes along with love. It is through all the seasons. For everything, there is a season. So let's recognize our ridges and our grooves and the dendrochronology that makes us be who we are, the rings of growth in our own hearts and souls. When we do, we will be certain that everything really is going to be okay. Take a breath. Take a nice deep breath and feel that movement of life within you. You know, we're awake right now. We're awake. We're aware. We recognize that as we see this force within us, that it is God. It is the presence of Spirit itself. And so we just feel the love of God within us. We hear the movement of the piano keys that touches our inner spirit and lifts us. I know that right here in this very room, in this very moment, wherever we may be sitting or listening from, that right there is the fullness of God, that right there is this ongoing process evolving us. We allow ourselves to take in the story of our very own lives, and we feel the richness and the power and just that activity of God within us. And in that way, we are very much like Elliot paddled out at sea, resting on the surfboard and moving with the movement of the ocean, with that natural rhythm that only a surfer knows. It's that peace, it's that freedom that comes as we're willing to let go and we're willing to make choices about that which we want to stand for. And so today and through this week, we open our hearts and our minds and we examine, we excavate a slice of our very own life and we begin to count the rings. We begin to see the beauty in the ridges as well as in the grooves, and see that it is all a reflection of lives well lived. No matter what the story has been, this is a brand new day. Today we have scattered the ashes of everything old into the wind. We allow all of life to just be what it is. And for our own selves, we stand firmly in the principles of spirituality, the laws that are always urging us, compelling us to make choices for our own good, to make choices for the experience of joy, to be open to love and relationships and forgiveness and the way that we are bound to one another in this holy connection, person to person, heart to heart. We stand together as a collective so that we can have strength to see through the muck and to understand that something is emerging. Something is coming forward and it can only come through us. So we open our hearts, we open our minds, we invite Spirit to use us in a beautiful, positive way to help us to see the beauty in the contrasts and to preserve in our tender hearts a secret place where we truly know all is well. All is well. And as I feel that blessing ripple out into this community, I rejoice in knowing that for nearly 50 years, people have been dedicated to this sacred gathering for the West Valley of Phoenix, Arizona. That we have something significant that helps to transform lives and allows us to let go of our fear. I say thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you, infinite spirit. How grateful I am to know that this is the law in the universe that evolves life to higher and higher levels, to deeper experiences of spirituality, and to those beautiful heart-to-heart moments of just enjoying each other. In deep gratitude, I release the words of this prayer and allow them to be, and together we say, and so it is. Amen. Amen. Wait, one more thing. What are you wearing, Rod?
I am wearing a cool shirt given to me by Mr. Hugh himself. Thank you, Hugh.
Grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. Everywhere I look and every face I see is love reflected, shining back to me. I just give thanks for all these simple things, the joy and peace that gratitude brings. That's why I'm grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have.
Thank you, Bradfords. So I just wanted to have one quick announcement, reminder for all the men. We're going to be going to the escape room on September the 17th. So if you have not participated in that, I do strongly encourage it because it teaches you how to break out of things. So, and it's a lot of fun. We did it a couple months back. We had a good time. So see John Kruger if you're interested. And so I also want to remind everybody that we are not passing around the offering plate, that we have drop boxes in the back of the room, or tithing box in the back of the room. We have one on the door on the way in for goodies. And then we also have one out there in the bookstore area. So, yeah. So you can drop your tithe in those boxes, and we are definitely appreciative of that. So let's say our giving affirmation together. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is.
It's for our last song. Here we go. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. I ain't thinking about my problems. I'm living now. I'm living now. I ain't gonna worry about the future. I'm living now. I'm living now. So put your hands up if you feel like having a good time. Put your hands up if you're sharing love with all. Raise your cup if you're hopeful for tomorrow. Put your hands up if you're ready to have some fun. Now sing it. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in a moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in a moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in a moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. One more time. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Woo!
All right, so let's say our closing affirmation together. I see the beauty in the complexity.
I see the beauty in the complexity.
And I stay open to evolve and grow.
I stay open to evolve and grow.
And so it is.
Love much.